But first, I would like each of you, yes, say how were you introduced to Bitcoin?
Well, I just learned about it on the internet. Like I came across it, so I didn't have the advantage of having somebody tell me about it or help teach me how to use it or anything like that. I kind of just had to figure it out on my own.
When was it?
Oh, it was very early days.
Okay. So just guess. How
And
much.
I don't have any of those Bitcoins left.
Oh, shit. Andreas.
Is this on? No?
It seems it's not.
No, 1, 2, nobody's in the booth. Okay.
¿Podemos resolverlo?
Oh, it's okay. How about this one? Oh,
Yeah.
better. Okay, great. Let me see. I read about it in mid-2011, and I think it was an article on Slashdot, and it was talking about slashdot.org. Can't figure out that URL intentionally. Anyway, it was an article about Bitcoin being used in gambling. And my initial reaction is, I think, the same reaction that everybody had when they first came across Bitcoin, which is like, nerd money. That's not going to work. In fact, I think the entire history of Bitcoin is Satoshi Nakamoto introducing it, the entire world going, nerd money, that's never going to work, and then gradually converting one person at a time until we all believe in it. And then 6 months later, I heard about it again, and this article had a link to the Satoshi paper, and I read the Satoshi paper, and I thought, okay, oh wow, this isn't money. It's a decentralized network. It's so much more than just money. And this is really in depth. And once I understood that, it just dropped everything and stopped doing everything else. Then disappeared for 4 months, reading stuff. Yeah.
So also mid-2011, I was wasting time on Facebook. And I was in New Hampshire as part of the Free State Project at that time. And one of my friends posted on Facebook about some article, I guess this was May of 2011, describing this online currency that had gone up 50,000% in the last 6 months, or yes, the last 6 months or so. And being a hobbyist of finance and things like that, I knew that financial assets do not move like that unless they are a scam or some kind of mistake or something. So I was like, oh, what the hell is this? And I clicked on it and read about it and dismissed it for about 30 or 40 minutes. And then when I got to the understanding that it was decentralized, that there was no central office controlling it, it lit up a light bulb in my head, and I compared it immediately to e-gold, which was a form of online currency payment, back in the day. That was awesome and espoused lots of libertarian principles about sovereign money and being in control of your own wealth. And it had gotten shut down by the federal government, primarily because it had a central office and central servers. And so when I made that connection, I thought, wow, this is something really special. I'll also convey Roger Veer's introduction story, since he's not here to join us. Roger, I think, has the best story of all for when he found out about it. I think it was in early 2011, and he was in Tokyo, and he read something online about Bitcoin and started reading it and just completely became absorbed, as we all know. He didn't eat or drink any water for several days or sleep. He was on his computer for like 2 or 3 days, the kind of thing you read about someone in China playing World of Warcraft and then they go to the hospital. Roger did that with Bitcoin, and he suffered like dehydration poisoning, and his fiance at the time had to take him to the hospital. So he and then as Bitcoin Jesus, he arose 3 days later, and he was fine.
I had similar experience. Can I get some audio?
No, yes, excuse me, Andreas.
It's on. No, it's not on? Okay, there we go. Thank you so much, Rodolfo. I had a similar experience when I first figured out that this was big. I started reading everything I could about Bitcoin, and then I would go to sleep at midnight, wake up at 7 in the morning, start reading Bitcoin all day long until midnight, go to sleep, wake up, 7 to midnight every single day for 4 months. And I wouldn't eat. So I would like just have people bring me a sandwich, and I'd take one bite, put it down, and keep reading. And so I lost 26 pounds in 4 months. So that's the Bitcoin fugue diet. It's like get completely obsessed with the technology, lose pounds fast. Maybe I should market that. I might make more money than I do in Bitcoin.
And then we wonder why people think that we're all a bunch of cultists.
Yes, I would say one thing that's different for you to understand is that in 2011, there were not these nice videos and easy reading stuff just to understand about Bitcoin, or all these past experience of things that some things that we say, oh, this might be overruled or stuff like that. Now we all know about this, but before it was very difficult to really believe.
I learned everything about Bitcoin by reading C++. Like I literally, the only way I could understand how does this thing work is sit down and read the source code. And yeah, and that was not easy either. It was a mess. I think that's the one thing we do know about Satoshi Nakamoto. He's not a programmer, because that code was a mess. And it's been improved dramatically since.
Well, and another thing, like Satoshi, he, in part of his writings, he said, you know, if I don't have time to explain it to you, like, you're going to have to learn it on your own.
Right, yeah.
And, you know, like, my first public video, like, on YouTube, I think, was January 2011. So about the same time Roger Ver first started learning about it. Like, I was, like, publicly talking about it, recommending it, stuff like that. And then we came out with that We Use Coins video in March.
Yeah.
That's had like 8 million views or something like that. So I mean, it's taken a lot to, and you know, I suppose we've screwed up in trying to, with the metaphors or the analogies, like trying to help people understand the sheer abstraction of the technology. But yeah, here we are. Like, we're getting over it.
Actually, in my case, yes, as you know, I had the domain, no, and I was introduced again in early 2011, yes. Actually, I must say that perhaps until 2008, since year 2000, every year I checked Google, putting in Bitcoin to see if someone wanted my domain, no? Because it was a name I really liked. But eventually, since 2009, I haven't done it, and I realized when someone wanted to buy the domain from me, and they offered me, I remember, $3,500, yes? And I was, hey, I only paid $8 for 10 years, $80, $35, yeah, that's great. So we decided to do the transaction, yes, the next day. And that night, I read about Bitcoin, and I couldn't sleep. And I just, when it was the time to talk with this guy, I just said, no way, I won't sell this. No, but no one will pay you. How much will you want? No, I don't know, but no, they won't pay you more than 5,000. Let me give you 5,000, and we start fighting. And
which domain was this?
This guy?
No, which domain was it?
Bitcoins.com.
Bitcoins, okay.
And so this guy was like, well, I just close relations with him, and during 3 or 4 months, I've been reading and trying to understand what Bitcoin was and trying to understand what the price of the domain should really be, no? And as it was Bitcoins with an S and not Bitcoin, yes, but I thought everybody talks about the Bitcoins, no? So they were like, lots of people say, no, it's not the real domain, it has no value because it has an S and something like that. Actually, it did have value. It was well sold, and
Well, that's why they want to buy it, right?
yes, and the most difficult thing, in my case, it was my family, no? I mean, everybody's saying, hey, they're offering you 10,000. Why don't you take it? Well, it's stupid, they're offering you this. And so it was like really needing to believe in Bitcoin before. Yeah. It was a really economic
But you
decision.
should have taken 1,000 and just put it into Bitcoin.
I did something similar. For more than that, but I did something similar.
Yeah, that's the hard thing about.
Actually, I had half in Bitcoins and half in.
That's the hard thing about our industry, is that investing in Bitcoin over the last 6 years is still better than investing in any of the companies in Bitcoin, right? You still get the better return. So, and until that changes, that's a problem, because you're not doing productive investment. You're not generating new innovation that way, right?
Yeah,
it's difficult.
There's definitely a paradox. The first shirt. The first thing I bought with Bitcoin was a T-shirt, and it was 14 Bitcoin back in 2011. And I was so excited to get this shirt and only spend 14 silly made-up internet dollars. And of course, in hindsight, that was a very stupid thing to do. But if no one had ever done if no one had ever spent their Bitcoin on things or invested Bitcoin in things, the whole industry would not have gotten going. So there's a very weird paradox in that it's both stupid and smart at the same time to do some of these actions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, then, a short answer about how do you feel, if it did, how do you feel that Bitcoin changed you? I mean, did you started reading, understanding about Bitcoin? Did it change your way of, your beliefs, your finance? How did it change you in personal? Actually, it did change me, at least. Yes, I was not in this sort of libertarian stuff and such, and I started to understand value from another aspect, and I started to believe in this, and I said, I need to share what I know now. No? I need to share with the world, and we did these foundations and stuff like that, because it changed. I replaced my work, and I started to really dedicate into this, because it changed me. So I wanted to know if you feel that it changed you also.
Yeah, it changed me completely. Not in the things that I thought about the world, but in, I guess the way to describe it is, before Bitcoin, I was concerned and stressed out and saddened by the state of the world, in that money was controlled by governments. And how the hell does that stop? I mean, I'm not going to go around convincing everyone to vote on a gold standard to be re-implemented. So what do I do? I'm stuck. I'm using this national money that I don't want to be part of. And when Bitcoin came along, it felt like I was able to step off the sinking Titanic and to be in the lifeboat, and to know that I'm getting to safety because I figured out how to get off the ship. And so ever since then, I've felt a lot more at peace with the world, because I see the political spectacle now as a spectacle, as opposed to a ship that I am on and drowning with.
Yeah, great, nice.
It gave me hope. I mean, that's the same thing. It gave me hope that we could change things. But it also gave me hope in a different way, which is, I think, a lot of the hope that had come from the internet had gotten eroded. Like, I felt that the internet was delivering its promise, but at the same time it had become too corporate, too controlled, too closed, and all of the great things that the internet was in the 90s were gradually getting eroded. And I felt like it was the end of kind of the internet promise. It had faded. But then I thought about it a different way, which is, as much as all of these corporations control the internet, all of these governments surveil the internet, it's still free enough to birth something as amazing as Bitcoin, which basically it's a black swan engine. It's like, oh, we control the world. What the hell was that? And so it not only gave me hope from a financial perspective, but it reignited my hope in the internet and its ability to deliver unexpected, earth-shattering surprise. And so what I think now is that something like Bitcoin could happen again out of the internet. So I don't think we're done.
Yeah.
Or Doge, yes, exactly. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say it's definitely changed me. I suppose personally, I'm very much a stoic. I don't know if people have read like the letters to Seneca or whatever, but so I'm pretty stoic in that sense. One of the philosophers had been sentenced to death by the emperor in Rome, and the emperor asked him, like, "Do you have any last words?" And he's like, "Thank you, emperor." So it's so I wouldn't say that, like, we have the situation in the world that's there, and then we have what we can do ourselves to change stuff. And someone, the first guy who climbed Mount Everest, he was asked, like, well, why'd you climb Mount Everest? Because it's there, And I think that's one of the reasons that Bitcoin has attracted the mental and the human capital that it has. Because, like, it's this mountain that we can climb. And we don't climb it because it's easy. We climb it because it's hard. And we don't do it, we want to do it first, and we want to do it right. And it's the challenge that gives us the internal drive and the motivation. You know, it's not really any different from surfing or skiing or playing the piano. It's the flow that we get into from solving the problem, from climbing the mountain, from like pushing on the universe and making a dent in it. It's like, yeah, I did that, you know? It's like that's how I think it's changed me, you know? It's been just this huge mountain to climb, and it's, you know, it's internal satisfaction from climbing it. And all the better if you can do it first and you can do it right, like, you know, and we can take this tool of Bitcoin and we can shape and we can build pretty much whatever we want to build, because there's permissionless innovation with it. We're in uncharted territory. Like, you want to change something in the world, you want to do something, like, put on your hiking boots and get up the mountain. Like, it's really that easy.
Absolutely. Very nice words. If it would have been easier, it wouldn't have been as fun as it's been.
Yeah, I mean, people were like, man, why didn't I learn about Bitcoin earlier? Why weren't you there to tell me? And I was like, man, you have no idea how, like, I'm always climbing mountains just to do it, you know? I'm always, like, you have to know about computer networking and cryptography and mathematics and, like, all of this stuff to get Bitcoin, you know, in those early days. Like, people aren't just going to put you on their back and haul you up the mountain. You want to see the view from the top of the mountain, then climb it yourself, you know? And that's I think how it's changed me, because it's like, this is not easy stuff. It's hard, but man, is it worth it?
Nice. Well, these other two questions has to do with balls of steel. Yes. How much
How
of
do you
your
say that in Spanish?
bolas de huevos de acero, balls of steel? Yes. How much of your long-time holdings are in bitcoins?
A smart Bitcoiner would never answer that.
Not in numbers, in percentage.
Probably
You cannot answer.
Probably half.
Half.
Yeah.
Several times more than 100%. It's really simple. I have debt, and my debt is not in Bitcoin, so I don't really have that much Bitcoin.
Yeah, enough, I guess.
Okay. And what's your time frame in this long term? I mean, when you say, yes, I'm keeping this for the long term, yes, what would you say, okay, but I'm thinking about 5 years, 10 years, if you have saved some sort of, I have some sort of Bitcoins that I would say I wouldn't touch them until when? Which is your long term?
Well, one of the discerning attributes, I think, of the people who got involved in Bitcoin very early was those who realized that it's not that you buy Bitcoin in order to sell them someday. You may sell some someday, but you're buying them because you're selling your dollars today. Yes. You've sold that and you're moving on to something better, and now you're out here. So when will I climb back onto the Titanic? I'm not going to.
Right, it's like that Reddit meme with Neo and Morpheus, and Neo says, so are you saying that one day I'll be able to sell my Bitcoin for millions of dollars? And Morpheus says, no, Neo, what I'm telling you is that one day you won't have to. And so, yeah, I mean, I live in Bitcoin. I don't really hold because I don't buy. I earn Bitcoin. And I think that's really the most important lesson in Bitcoin, is that the easiest way to acquire Bitcoin is to sell your labor, your capacity, and earn it. It's the most honest way to make Bitcoin. Is not speculative investment. It's earn it for your labor. And there aren't that many people in Bitcoin who do that, but I earn it. And how long do I hodl, as they say? Until the 28th of the month. And then I have to pay rent. Okay. And then I sell my Bitcoin, and I pay my landlord until my landlord starts taking Bitcoin, and then I won't have to do that anymore But, you know, to me, Bitcoin is not an investment. It hasn't been an investment, well, because I don't have any money to invest, but it's not an investment because it's my living currency. I live in Bitcoin, I live through Bitcoin, I earn in Bitcoin, and I unfortunately still have to spend dollars in many cases, so I just sell all the time, every week.
I'm the next stuck up, huh? You know, gold, silver, freedom of speech, cryptography, Bitcoin, they're not just ways to make money, but they're essential checks and balances in the political machinery and in the way that we interact with people, whether it's on a voluntary basis or whether it's under coercion and intimidation. And me personally, I don't really like being intimidated. So, you know what? I'm not really going to move out of, you know, if you hold in your mind the engine that moves the world, right, from Atlas Shrugged, like, you're not just going to come back out of Galt's Gulch until it's nice and friendly for you, you know? Otherwise, you'll withhold your skills and your talents and your abilities from the looters and the moochers. And, yeah, so, you know, when the general economic climate is a little bit more friendly, that's when I'll move out of my Bitcoin. In the meantime, they can deal with, you know, crop failures and shortages and rationing and like all of this stuff, because Bitcoin has changed that risk-free rate of return, that risk-free asset. And, you know, when there's less risk for capital, we'll come out. And in the meantime, I guess people that want to stay in that system can continue dealing with all of the economic calamity and all of the problems that they create through the adoption of their own bad ideas.
Okay, so
Real quick, I think it turns out that the Galt's Gulch wasn't a valley in Colorado, but it was a distributed ledger system. And,
Yeah.
and people, I don't think, quite recognize that concept of a place where productive individuals can escape to work together doesn't have to be a physical space, especially in the age of the internet. Bitcoin
Absolutely.
is that space for us.
Yeah, and I mean, we're colonizing a new nation when you think about it. Christopher Columbus, what he really did was he discovered the trade winds that made the economic incentives to build out the new world possible. Cypherspace, Bitcoin are the trade winds, and Bitcoin's the Manhattan that all of the goods and services that will flow through from building out this new nation of cypherspace.
Is
I'd like
Mark Karpellis Christopher Columbus?
No, he's maybe the cat, but to Bane.
I have a slightly different perspective, which is to look at Bitcoin from a broader perspective, look at it from the perspective not of currency, but of community, and community through the expression of culture. I think it's really important to think about it from that perspective. So if you ask me what is my greatest investment or asset, it's 250 YouTube videos. It's this community. It's meeting people who say, I watched a video you did, and I quit my job. That's my investment in Bitcoin. It's not in Bitcoin. It's in being a participant and having the power to shape culture in this space. And that is the one thing that cannot be taken away from me, that cannot collapse in value, that is not volatile, and that keeps accumulating views.
Yeah.
That's my investment.
Well, I did have one more question, but which has to do with balls of steel. Yes, how did you do when price went up, down, if you kept them or not? But I just won't let you answer. I will ask the people from here.
Yes, and we have one question from the streaming, from the people seeing us abroad. Do you have a credit card, a Bitcoin credit card, or do you have some sort of
Is
Bitcoin
Capital
credit
One
card?
trying to pitch us?
I don't know. I think it's just if you have some of the services that offer credit cards that use Bitcoins to pay.
Yeah, I do.
You
Well, I mean, actually, I'm expecting one in the mail.
Okay.
So, yes. I'm interested in experimenting with it.
Experimenting.
Yeah.
I have the one from Zappo, and I will get the Coinbase one as soon as it's available in Colorado.
Right.
I got an American Express Business Platinum, and I I eat
running
them.
on Bitcoin? That would be new.
No, they give me free food at the Centurion Lounge, and oh, good gracious, I'm a negative ROI for them. Yeah, so I don't even hardly use it for transactions, but I get like the free food and I get all the reimbursements on the stuff. So
To me, it's the free Uber.
the free Uber,
Using Amex points for Uber and doing all your business travel on Amex, and then essentially free Uber anywhere in the world because it's just paid with points. That's amazing.
Actually, I do have the best one of all. Yes, it's the one of Satoshi Tango. Is he here? Yes, the best one of all. You should all try to get one of those.
Okay, so now questions from the audience here, no? Any questions?
So, what is your least depressing Bitcoin sub story? And
Least depressing?
yeah, maybe the funniest one, but
All right. So I would like to make this T-shirt, which is based on a true story, which is I taught Satoshi Nakamoto how to use Bitcoin, and he bought me a pastrami sandwich. In 2014, Newsweek did the story about Dorian Nakamoto, this guy in Los Angeles, Dorian Satoshi Nakamoto, a retired engineer, and they said this is the inventor of Bitcoin, and his life was really messed up for a while. And a lot of people online said, yeah, can we do something to help this person? And so I decided to run a fundraiser. And in 48 hours, we raised about $50,000 at the time in Bitcoin. And I made a promise that 3 months later I would go and give this Bitcoin to Dorian. And I went to Los Angeles and I gave the Bitcoin to Dorian. But I mean, giving the Bitcoin to Dorian meant giving him control of Bitcoin. And so Dorian's wonderful, wonderful character, but he's a grandpa, right? Has no idea how to use a computer. Is running just messed up Windows XP thing with, and I'm trying to teach how to use a wallet, and I say, click on the top left in order to sell your Bitcoin, and he's trying to click on, file, view, edit, because he can't tell the difference between the menu bar and the browser. So at this point, I know this is not the inventor of Bitcoin because he can't use the internet. So I spent about 3 hours teaching Satoshi Nakamoto how to use a browser. And after that, he was really thankful, so he took me to his favorite place, which was this dive bar place that served pastrami sandwiches. So I had a pastrami sandwich with Satoshi Nakamoto for teaching him how to use Bitcoin.
Yeah, I got into virtual currencies when I was still in, I think, middle school. I was little, right? And so I've kind of always looked at the young, the kids that are using Bitcoin and like, man, I want to mentor them or help them like in their path. And there are these 3 kids. They started beesbros.com, and they sell like honey caramels and almonds and everything for Bitcoins. And I asked them if they could make some raspberry honey roasted almonds, and they made some and sent me samples. They were good, so I bought like 5 pounds of them, and I haven't eaten them all yet. And each pound of the almonds is like $10,000 worth of Bitcoin now. So I'm like, man, the most expensive almonds I've ever eaten.
Yeah, are they saltier because of your tears, or?
Well, and I'm happy as a clam for the kids because like I got them on CNBC actually at the Las Vegas conference, and then their sales really blew up. But on CNBC they were asked like, well, have you sold any of your Bitcoins? And they're just like little 13-year-old kids like, well, no, we're not sure how the taxes implicate us. We haven't sold any of our Bitcoins. And I'm like, good gracious, they buy a yacht or something.
Okay, I'll tell you guys a good story. All right, so if you guys see me at a conference or something, sometimes you might hear one of my friends call me the Erik Voorhees. So I'm going to tell you where that name comes from. So back in 2012, at some point, I'd been hearing about this thing called the Silk Road, and I was amazed that it was working. People were using it to freely transact with each other in a consensual manner, and I thought it was a brilliant invention. I thought it was helping humanity, and I thought, despite all the controversy, it was a really important and valuable thing. And I was like, well, I should try it. I should see how this works. And so I logged into Tor and I signed up an account with Silk Road. And I decided to buy something. And I was like, all right, what I should do to test if the theory here is true, even if I put in my real name, I shouldn't be able to get in trouble because there's no way to prove that it was actually me. And I was like, is this the like coolest thing I've ever done, or is this the stupidest thing I've ever done?
Or both.
Or both. But I decided to do it, and so I put in my real name and paid with Bitcoin. And a couple days went by, and I didn't have any indication of whether it was going to be shipped to me or any of this. So I logged back in, and I contacted the person, and I said, what's the deal? Is this working out? And he said, I don't feel comfortable. I don't feel comfortable with this transaction. And I sent back and I said, why? He said, are you really the Erik Voorhees? So here I was thinking I was all cool being anonymous on the dark web, buying something on Silk Road, and some random drug dealer somewhere in the world knew me and wouldn't sell it to me because he thought it must not be Erik because he would not be this stupid to do it. Yeah, so I told him, thank you for being careful, and that was the end of that. And that's where the name The Erik Voorhees comes from.
I've got one more for you. Just a quick one. I'll make it really quick. If you look at my online profile, you'll see that I spell my name Andreas M. Antonopulous. Why the M? It's like, it's not like Antonopoulos is the most common name in the world. Half the people in the world can't even spell it. So, actually, sorry, no, none of the people in the world can spell it. So, turns out, of course, it is common, right? In Greek, it's relatively common, but more importantly, I have a first cousin who is named after my grandfather and is also Andreas Antonopoulos, and he's in fintech. And so I have destroyed his Google ranking. Because if you type Andreas into Google, it comes up with suggest Andreas Antonopoulos Bitcoin as the very next search, and he will go to conferences, and hundreds of people will show up and then be bitterly disappointed that it is not me. So for people who think like, oh yeah, why do you need the M? It's not like there's anybody else. There is a very, very upset cousin of mine who hates my guts at this point because...
It happened to me with you. I phoned you one time because some Andreas Antonopoulos was in Buenos Aires giving a FinTech talk. And I said, Andreas, you came to Buenos Aires and you didn't mail us, tell us, hey guys, I'm going there, down there. I said, no, that's my cousin.
So wait, before you go to a conference, check if there's an M there because, yeah.
Okay, yes.
We have one more question over here.
My question is primarily for Erik, but we'd love to hear other opinions. What role do you think alternative currencies would play in the future of the crypto ecosystem?
It's a great question. I used to be a Bitcoin maximalist, which is the derogatory label, maybe, for someone who thinks that there can only be one digital asset called Bitcoin. It will be the only form of money, the only thing that anyone uses over a blockchain. And I used to think that because of how money tends to work. Network effects are extremely important. You don't need more than one money, generally, with a very important exception, which is that money has certain attributes to it. And those attributes make a certain type of money good for certain things. And so if you have attributes that make a money good for certain things, and another form of money with very different attributes that may make it very good for something else, those two forms of money can coexist perfectly reasonably. And so that's kind of broke the spell, and I started realizing that, okay, maybe I shouldn't dismiss all these other assets so quickly. And then I came to realize that not only will there be perhaps lots of monies that have different types of things, you know, Dash being a great example. If you want really good privacy, Bitcoin may not be as appropriate as Dash, and the two of them are really symbiotic. But there are going to be a lot of digital tokens that are not money at all. And most of the people in the industry, I think, have not quite woken up to this. And this will be very interesting for regulators to face as well, because places like New York have stated that, you know, these virtual currency is regulated in a certain way, but they've not really defined what that means. And there are going to be blockchain tokens that represent IP, or like you could have a song from an artist released as a token. Taylor Swift could release a new song, 10,000 copies of them as a token. They could be traded around, and her #1 fans who had a real token would be able to play it and know that they had helped contribute to Taylor Swift in some way. FinCEN and New York are going to have to realize that they've now started regulating Taylor Swift tracks. They don't know yet that they are, but they are. And so anyway, the point being, people are going to realize that these tokens on blockchains can be used for all manner of things, money being a really good first version of that. And we will live in a world with thousands or millions or billions of digital assets representing all different types of things. And so I think that'll be a very exciting world, and one that'll enrich the whole ecosystem.
I can't agree more with that. I take a slightly different perspective. I look at it as an evolutionary environment, which means that there are environmental niches in which certain coins will fit. And those environmental niches are infinitely variable. And so even if there is like an alpha predator, that alpha predator has a tick on its shoulder, which is another little coin that's riding on a side chain and serving a completely different purpose in the ecological niche. And the idea that you can have one species and once that evolves, everything else disappears is ridiculous. Same thing applies to coins. There's no reason why you would have that, which brings another thing for the regulators, which is at the moment the evolution of these coins is driven by utility, but once they start meddling, they provide an additional environmental stimulus, which is avoiding regulation, and then they start evolving other coins. And the way I've expressed that is, if you step on the cuddly little gecko, it evolves into a Komodo dragon, and the next time you try to step on it, it bites your foot off. So, you know, in the end, 20 years from now, we might think of Bitcoin as the cuddly little coin, because the regulators have pushed us into some highly venomous coins that are defending themselves against regulation.
I love that analogy. I'll also say that I do not think that there will be two coins or two assets that do exactly the same thing that will both coexist with each other. Because of network effects, that doesn't make sense. So a lot of coins will outcompete each other and destroy each other, but ultimately there can still be many that survive for various reasons.
Oh, any other questions? I agree with Erik and Andreas on all of those points pretty much.
I think time is up, so that's it.
Thank you
very much for being here.